OBS Studio 0.15.0 release that just came out about 3 days ago. It came with a whole hell of a lot of updates and changes. So the number of changes is just ridiculous. It is amazing, basically, is what it is. There's you know, there isn't like a massive number of changes, I guess, but there are a lot of functional changes and a lot of things that that I think people are going to notice. So let's flip over to this is the OBS Studio GitHub page. So you can see here, github.com, OBS Studio releases. So if you can get to this page from their website, and this lists their main change log. There should be other change logs too, and I can show you some of those. But this is going to be the high level changes. So, like I said, this was released 3 days ago. And the last release was on May 15th. So I've already done a couple of little videos and streams on OBS, because OBS is what I use. And I'm going to do something crazy, and let's see if I can break my computer here. You can't actually see what I'm doing, but while I'm doing that, over here, I'm going to talk about the changes here. So the first one they list here is they added an image slideshow source. Let me see if I can do that again. Added an image fuck, I can't do it. Slideshow. I can say slideshow just fine. Image slideshow source. Maybe it's just thinking about source being up next. Anyway, so they added this slideshow feature. You have a playlist. You can add a whole directories to, and you can use different types of transitions between them, and you can even randomize the images that are there. I'll demonstrate this here in a minute, right before or right after I see if I break things. Won't surprise me at all if this breaks shit, but let's see what happens. Alright, so I can't do it. What I was trying to do was basically run another instance of OBS in order to demonstrate things in that OBS window, but I guess it won't let me. Oh well, it's worth a shot. So, alright, so that's one of the changes. We get a new slideshow, and that can be useful if like you want to have any sort of cascade of different images appearing in your broadcast. One of the fun things you might want to do with it is, now I haven't tested this yet, so don't quote me on it, but if you have a little script or something, a little program that'll set up that will put images in a file or in a directory, and let's see, it actually says this here, you can add directories to it. So if your program adds images to this directory, like, I don't know, the images of the game that you're playing or whatever else, like the image slideshow should be able to pick that up and automatically swap it in. So let's see. See if I have any images here that I can use. I don't have a whole lot of images on this computer. So here, this is a bunch of free icons I downloaded. I have no idea how long ago. So let's see. I'm gonna full screen this, and yeah, there you go. So obviously ignore the top left of the screen because that's just the rest of the screen repeated. And so what do we have here? So let's add our new source, image slideshow. And I've left my backup computer the other side of the room. It's not my wisest decision. Turn the volume down on it. There we go. Okay. So, now we have this going on over here. Here we have our transitions. We got cuts, we got fades, we got swipes, we got slides. How many milliseconds? I'm going to set this for like really low, so to like 100 milliseconds, so it should flip through them really quickly. Transition speed, that's, put that down. Here, let's do this. Put this on half a second, and put this on 100 milliseconds. All right, and so I'm going to add this directory, and yeah, so you can see it's just basically flip-flopping through all of these images in this directory real fast. And let's see if I can, yeah, so this should be probably pretty funny looking to anyone who's streaming this right now. But now you have this flashing thing popping up right here with all of the gaming images that I have. So that's kind of useful. You know, you might want to, of course, change the settings to be less crazy aggressive. Like, here, I'll set it to 2 seconds and 1 second here and watch them fade between. And you can make that look all kind of professional or whatever else you need. If you want to put in, you want to generate some images, like ticker tape kind of images in GIMP or Photoshop or whatever you got, and then fade between each one of them, you can use this for all kinds of things. So, yeah, so I'm going to remove the slideshow now. So that's the first thing the first big thing that was added. It seems like they added a lot of sources. They also added a VLC video source. And so with playlist support via libVLC. So if you were using the video source previously that was available, it wasn't very flexible. You didn't have video source, you didn't have a playlist support, and also audio didn't render locally, only over the stream. So I don't know if the VLC video source does that, but this is, but it's worth a shot. So let me find a video here. Let's see, do I have any videos on this computer? See if I can find something. Well, I have my old videos. I can use those. So let's go down here. Stream recordings. What do we got? Let's do. What is this? I don't even know what this is. So let me open this. This is an old video from a couple weeks ago, it looks like. And so I'm going to open it up on my computer in VLC. And you shouldn't be able to hear any of this or see any of it yet. But yeah, this looks like the video I did. Yeah, this is the video I did of Space Engineers. Okay. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to go into the stream recordings folder and pull up this video of Space Engineers, which does not feel like it's been that long already. Okay, so going back to desktop, let's go over here, and we're going to add our VLC video source and see what we can do with this. So here's our playlist: stop when not visible, restart when visible, pause when not visible, unpause when visible. Yeah, that seems like a pretty good setting. Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple of different options for how it should work whenever it's visible or invisible. I think the pause unpause thing is good, but depending on what you're doing, these other settings may be of use to you. So it looks like you can add a whole directory for this as well, so it works very similar to the slideshow. And now it's full screen, which is actually kind of amusing. However, it is not playing. Okay, so that's kind of interesting.
Let's see.
It is connected? I think we're connected again. Sorry about that. So yeah, okay, again, so there's no local audio for it. So I can't hear it, even though you can hear it. Basically is what's happening. And you can't see a whole lot now. Here, let me resize this. So here's the video playing with the VLC player. And the nice thing about the VLC player is it can play more things. Like you can even use it to play like DVDs or anything else like that. Naturally you can't broadcast copyrighted material without permission, but it could still be useful because there are lots of things that are released on DVDs that you can stream, or if you're doing like reviews and commentary on stuff, you have, at least in the United States, you have a fair use doctrine, which will allow you to do that. Apparently, this video isn't super dynamic, so you can't actually see that I'm doing anything interesting. Okay, yeah, well, I'm doing something in the background anyway. That's interesting. It looks like while the game is playing, the overlay is still there. Or is this the video? This might be the video in-game that I'm having to watch behind it all. Anyway, point being, you have video, and you can use it here. Let's see. What we got here? Check. Yeah, alright. So, you can put any sort of video here, and like, in this case, this is an old video of my own, so I can actually do picture-in-picture with whatever I'm doing up here and have video here. So if you want to do like speedrun comparisons or something else, like you can see like, all right, well, this is my last run through of the game, here's me now, and whatever else. There's all kinds of things that you can use a video source for. But the addition of being able to add a playlist and having different visibility behaviors is really handy. So right now I'm going to drop the VLC video source, and we're going to look at the other changes. Okay, so next up, what do we have? Oh yeah, so added view menu to allow hiding parts of the user interface. So this isn't too crazy. The transition pane, which takes up a big chunk of the screen, you can now hide that, especially if you're not going to be changing the types of transitions you're using a lot, which I don't personally. And then we have the list box toolbars, which are just like the plus, minus, up, down, and the status bar. And I'll show you these right now. So these down here, this stuff is the list box toolbars. You can see I've already hidden it. Like, it's the first thing I did was I hid the transition pane, which goes over here. And then the status bar is this thing down here, which shows your CPU usage and all that other stuff. Also, if you're having issues, there will be a status message. I cannot say S today, apparently. There's a status message that pops up down here, and will tell you if your computer's having trouble rendering or whatever else the stream. So that's pretty useful. So let's look at, so here's your toolbars, here's your list boxes. So I'm going to hide it, and you can see these disappear. and show them, and they come back. You know, you actually really don't need these because you can just right click on the background or whatever else, and you can move them around and do all kinds of stuff. So you don't really need these. These are just handy. I'm going to leave them up there for now, but I might hide them later. And so scene transitions, you can see this reorganizes a little bit, and you have the you know, whatever they are here that you have set up, the transitions you've set up. But mostly, I haven't noticed that I've had a need to change them a lot, so I'm going to hide them for now. And last thing to hide is the status bar, which, like I said, is just that thing at the bottom. So, that covers what the view menu added. It looks like they're going to add a bunch more things in the future. So, the next thing up is the scaling sampling filter for each item within a scene. And I think in the originally it was just a single option in settings. And it's this is useful. I mean, like, if you're not doing major resizes, and different types of scaling and resizes require maybe different algorithms. So here you can actually control each one of them individually. Kind of on a similar topic, we have the scale aspect ratio filter, which can change resolution and aspect ratio of a source. And then, of course, you can use the filters that are mentioned right here. And that's nice because before you could just kind of like drag them and kind of resize them. But this kind of gives you a lot more control. And that's something else I'm going to show you here. Yeah, I'm actually going to show you that right now. So I'm going to add a bit of text as an example. I guess it doesn't really matter what it is. We're going to set this to a very large size. And here. Oh, that's interesting. So one of the things they didn't mention they changed that is obvious to me is that there's no default text whenever you add a new text type or a new text field or whatever the hell it's called. So nothing shows up on the screen. So we're going to add one of these. So now we have the quick brown fox here, and we're going to change, we're going to give it an outline so we can see it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to hide this so we can see a little bit better what's going on. There's only so much I can do here. Yeah, so it's weird because I'm like seeing what I'm seeing over what I'm seeing. So can I add something else here? No, I just have to, I'd have to add an image or something. So anyway, you just have to deal with it like this. It's weird. So one of the things I wanted to show you, which is partially part of the new release, but also something that's also been sort of a pre-existing. So you can go in here and like you can do all of these things. These are your transforms. You can rotate them. You can flip things, and this works for everything, by the way. This works for just, like, it works for text. It works for everything. And if you've made some change and you hate everything that you've done, you hate your life, just hit Reset Transform, and it'll automatically bring everything back to normal. So, so I do something like this, like whenever I put in text in the middle, you know, I can just do this, this center to screen. Whenever I'm doing, putting in images or whatever else, I'll use fit to screen or stretch to screen, depending on what I'm doing. Same for games. Games may be running at a different resolution than my canvas resolution. And I probably should mention how canvas resolution works here in a minute too. And of course you can rotate them and whatever else. But here's where shit gets fun. Go into your edit transform. So from edit transform, apparently I can't do that. Okay. So from edit transform, where should I put this? Here? Here? No? Whatever, it's going here. Okay. So you can kind of do some interesting things here. So I'm going to zero this out just to demonstrate. So basically by default, the positional alignment is top left, which means that the top left of the element is what your position, what you're setting your position to be. So in this case, it's 0, 0. And so what I discovered is that getting certain bits of text exactly centered on the screen was a total pain in the ass. But if you go into this edit transform dialog, which is called scene item transform, even though it's called just edit transform here, you can change the positional alignment from top left to center, or even top center is actually fine too. And you can see now half the text is off the screen, which is like, you're like, oh, why would I want that? Well, here's where you have to do a little bit of math, but it'll give you perfectly aligned everything. So here's my desktop, and my canvas resolution is the same as my desktop resolution, so it's 1 for 1 pixel, and then I downscale it whenever I broadcast it. So what I can do is I can figure out my screen resolution, which on Windows you just right click and go to screen resolution. You can take your screen resolution and divide it by 2, and for me the dividing by 2 gives me 960. So I can take 960 and I can put it here. And look at that. Now the text is magically, perfectly centered. Without actually being in the center of the screen, it's actually centered left and right. There's a couple other ways you can get to the same solution, but it depends on your canvas resolution. So you're going to be centering, you know, these numbers are how many pixels across your canvas. So however big your canvas is however big that's going to have to be. So that's a fun thing that you can do right there. Well, fun, but useful. All right, so back to our list. So, oh, that's actually neat. I haven't even seen that one yet. I even read this list earlier and I totally glossed over. So add an option to automatically start recording when streaming, and yeah, so that's just on the, if you go into your settings, click on the big settings button. Let me double check what I'm doing here. Yep. So click on the big settings button and automatically record when streaming. You just click on that, and anytime you click the streaming button, it'll automatically record. So that's pretty useful. I'm actually gonna, I'll turn that on after this broadcast. So what else do we have here? I've already lost my shit. So yeah, okay. Hide cursor over projector, and I think that's just a, it doesn't actually explain what that's about, but, so yeah, I don't know what the hell projector means. I think it has something to do with your different types of overlay settings, but it'd be nice if they explained that one. I might have to look that up. We'll see if we can track down what the hell they're talking about here later. Added the ability to delete multiple selected sources. So before it was kind of frustrating to me, so if I want to delete several sources, I had to go and click on each one of them and delete them individually. Now I can select a bunch of them and delete them all. And now the crop pad, or the crop filter now does cropping and padding, which I haven't had cause to use yet, but is definitely a really useful filter for any sort of visual output. If you want to just pull, like cut the sides off of it, or add padding to it, so whenever you're resizing or doing other kind of crazy shit, you can just set the size that you need. And this is kind of a weird meta thing that they have added. So there's also this stuff it mentions here, and I'll get to that in a second. So basically what this is if you have a set of layers that you want to use and you don't want to have to recreate them for every scene, you can just create them all in one scene, like my, you know, in this one where I have the big spinner and the gradient in the background. I can actually just reuse that now. I don't have to recreate it for every single scene that I have. So I can just create that all in one scene and just reuse it. So this also mentions that if you put a scene that references the scene that you're putting in there, which is called recursion, it just won't let you do that. It says no, and that's probably a good call. Um, so I didn't really notice this too much, but one of the things I do is whenever I usually I start recording, and then I start streaming, and then I stop streaming, and then and then I stop recording, just to make sure this doesn't happen. But I guess now I don't have to worry about that too much. Um, yeah, I have no idea what that's talking about, honestly. And so what else we got? We have, yeah, so I don't know why you would need it to be 20 seconds, but if you need it to be 20 seconds, then go right for it. They've now cranked that async delay filter all the way up. This is also kind of neat. Uh, it'll restart your animated image from the first frame. I'm not even going to get into the debate about how this is pronounced right now. And that's kind of nice, making sure that it shows from the beginning rather than starting in the middle somewhere, which can be weird, especially if you have like I have my big loading screen, which is the big spinner, which is an animation that I made. And if it starts in the middle, it might look a little weird. Who knows? And fixing crashes and freezes are always great. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah. So it's the specified directories with the file formatting option. Okay. Yeah. So now it's no longer, you don't. It's not just the file name that you can change. You can now specify also directory paths. That's fucking awesome, because that means like I can record a whole bunch of videos in one day, and they'll all be stored in one directory rather than all in one directory. Cool. Um, what else we got here? So this is also kind of another big deal. And like I said, this is kind of a big release. Like there's not a massive number of changes, but they're all big changes. Very powerful stuff. So, um, and this is just a crazy thing, is that most computers nowadays have multiple cores. The computer that I'm running right now has like 4 physical cores and 8 logical cores. So basically, it was using 1/8 of the power of my computer maximum, and that sucked. And there was a video I did not too long ago where I was having issues where the codec was only using 1 core, and I think it might have been because I was using NVEC, which wasn't ideal for what I was trying to do that particular day. But I'm gonna play around with this a little bit because this is really great. I might be able to crank up some of my settings now because it's no longer restricted to 1 core, which I noticed that the CPU utilization was capping out at 50%, which is, like I said, actually 1/2 of 1 physical core out of 8 logical cores. So, total pain in the ass. And yeah, this is some internal thing. It's not totally visible, but if you were having issues where your rate control wasn't working whenever using the X264 codec, and you're like, but I set it to rate limit and it wasn't, well, now that should be fixed. If you're on Windows, some audio output devices weren't showing up, and your video device capture, it worked fine for me, so if that was an issue you're having, that should be solved. I haven't been playing any Blizzard games, but it seems like there was some trouble with that. However, this might actually fix some of my issues I was having with Far Cry 4. We'll see. And this is just nice to have, improved game capture performance for certain OpenGL games. There's a lot of OpenGL games out there, especially anything by, id Software, the creators of Doom and Quake and all that other stuff. They're all OpenGL. Rage, they also made, I can't even think of all the stuff that they've made right now. But they're all OpenGL games, and there's a whole lot of other ones out there, so this should be good for that. There's also process priority option, and so this kind of brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is what the hell processor priority and processor affinity is and all that other shit. So in order to get there, I'm going to show you one of my secret, most awesome pieces of software. So if you go sysinternal suite, it will take you to, this is only if you're on Windows. If you're not on Windows, you're just like, just skip this part, you know, come back in a minute. So system internal suite, like Windows isn't the only operating system I use. I have a MacBook sitting over there. I got, you know, Linux servers out there. I got all kinds of stuff. I got, you know, Linux VMs I'm running. So I use all three of the major operating systems, and I've used a lot of operating systems. You know, I've used everything from DOS to, I think I had VMS running at one point. I'm not that old. I got a copy of VMS that I was able to play around with a little bit. Actually, I logged into the server. That's what it was. Anyway, so I've used something like a dozen different operating systems. So it's not that I'm a Windows fanboy. It's just Windows is useful for certain things and makes my life easier for certain things right now. We'll see how it works in 6 months, because, you know, I'm on Windows 8.1 and I'm kind of trepidatious about going to Windows 10. But if you're still on Windows, this will work on Windows 10 or anything else. And you can see this is recently updated. And, you know, so Mark here is a really nice guy, and he was doing the sysinternal stuff. He's been doing it for like 10 years. And he actually was hired by Microsoft to continue working on his stuff because it was so good. Microsoft hired him and just was like, here, have some money and just keep working on your shit. And so Mr. Rasunovich is a badass. And so here's what I would recommend. You download the entire sysinternal suite. It's only 20 megs, but also know that all of these things are super powerful and can ruin your day if you don't know what you're doing, so be very careful with them. The ones that I use the most are auto runs, right here. But the big one that we're going to talk about today is Process Explorer. So Process Explorer looks like this here. And basically what it does is it replaces your, you know, Control-Delete process manager thing. Process Explorer does everything it does, and then like 80 times other things. 80 times as much. It's awesome. And if you want a quick shortcut, if you've never done this, if you want to get this to pop up after you've installed it, you have to run it once and then tell it to replace, and then it'll work. But to bring up your process manager, even if you don't have this, you hold down Control, Shift, and then press Escape, and it'll just bring it up. And I just did that. You can't see it yet, but I'm going to swap the window capture over to Process Explorer. Here we go. And this is what we got. And very interestingly, it's not displaying the title bar. I think it actually, the window capture never really tries to capture the title bar. So it's interesting that it does for Chrome because of the way Chrome has its own title bar. The funny thing is that the part that you can't see, like the title bar and all that stuff, is actually called Chrome. So whenever Google decided to release something named Chrome, it was very frustrating to a lot of people who were developing things for Firefox and other apps that used that term. Just a bit of trivia there. So you can see I have all kinds of random shit running. I got a whole bunch of NVIDIA crap. I got Sandboxy running here. I got Avast. I got Bonjour running. Here's my Motu configuration service for the audio interface I'm not using right now. I have an MSI motherboard, and so that's what this is for. You got a bunch of these things here. And so this is Process Explorer, and you're looking at the internals of my computer. These are all the things that are running in the background. Now, if you try to just cancel, like kill one of these, kill process, it's not just going to let you do it. You're actually going to have to go up in their file menu, which you can't see when I click on it, but there's a file menu up here, and you have to click Show Details for all processes, and then it'll reload this, and then you can play havoc with your computer. I don't recommend doing it, but hey, you got to break stuff and learn how to fix it, right? So, what else do we have here? So I was going to talk about process affinity and priority. So here, I'm going to pick on Steam. So here's the Steam service. And when I right-click on it, you can't actually see the menu because OBS hates me. But if you right click on Steam service, there will be a whole set of options. You know, I'm gonna put it on desktop capture and just hide this. Oh my god, I still have that stupid thing text up. There we go. Delete this. We don't need this. Good thing I noticed that. Okay, so here we are. We're back. And so now if I right click on this, there's set priority and set affinity. And set priority has all these options here. And basically it says, you know, how important is this process? And should Windows make sure that it's running on above other things, or should it behave cooperatively? Because there's a little thing about cooperative multitasking, which I won't get into today, but basically most things start off at normal, you know, at 8 here. And there's actually all the numbers in between from 0 to 24, I think, maybe even higher than that. But these are the settings that you can access from here, and you don't really need anything else. So basically, if there's a program that you just don't really care about, you could set it to below normal. And if we have, let's see if it's around here. I don't know if it's running right now. The search indexer, right? Let's see what the search indexer is set to. So if your search indexer is using a bit more processor than you want, like it's affecting things, you could set it to below normal or whatever else. And this basically says, hey, this program isn't really important, so whenever you're going around checking to see who needs to do work, worry about this process a little bit less. If you set it down here, the program will basically just never run. And if you set it here, it will barely run. This, it probably won't be too bad, but it works the other way around too. So if you set it higher and higher, like if I set something to real time, it'll basically take over the computer. You no longer, like, your cursor might start stuttering and whatever else, because real time means give this all of the resources that it can take. So basically be super careful with that. Pretty much never set anything above high. And a lot of the changes you're going to make here are really going to be a placebo effect, except that they will probably make your system run worse. But depending on the certain types of things that you're doing, this can be useful whenever you're doing, you know, live rendering, live streaming, any of that sort of thing. You might want to set the encoder or your DAW or your video, whatever, or even OBS to like above normal. You probably don't want to set it to high, but you might want to set it higher than normal. Do not set it to real time. It will ruin your day. It will do things that you just do not expect. So now here's affinity. So processor affinity is actually talking about, okay, so here we're gonna have to do this. So I have no idea what this is gonna do to OBS when I do this. All right, so it restarted sysinternals, process explorer. Actually, you know what? I'm actually using an older version of sysinternals, so I might have to update it, but it should look the same. So let me make sure my stream's still working. Everything looks fine. Okay, so where was I at? All right, search indexer. Okay, so I don't really recommend messing around with the search indexer. You can disable it through other things. You shouldn't have to do it through the Process Explorer, but here it is. So if you got a game that you're running, and you're running OBS, let's see what other things I got here. Anything of value, bunch of Chrome tabs. Yeah, so here's the deal. Okay, so here is, you can actually change this setting now from inside of OBS. You don't need to do it here, so don't do it here. As far as your process priority. So processor affinity, and I was talking about how I have 8 logical cores, and they're numbered from 0 to 7. I have 4 physical cores. You know, if you buy a quad-core computer, you have 4 physical cores. But Intel has this technology called hyperthreading, which allows each core to look like 2 cores itself. And those are called logical cores. And so they kind of come in pairs. So this is all one physical core. 0 and 1 are one physical core. and 2 and 3 are one physical core, 5 and 6 are one physical core, 6 and 7 are one physical core. So what I was doing the other day is whenever I was having encoding problems where OBS was only using a single CPU here, is only like using everything on CPU 0. Now, a lot of what happens is a lot of programs will just default to using CPU 0, and so CPU 0 and really CPU 1, because they're all the same, they share the same physical core, ends up doing all the work, and these guys are just sitting around twiddling their thumbs going, hey, is anything I can do? No? Oh, okay. So what you can do is you can uncheck these boxes, and then it'll start using CPU 2 and 3, basically, the physical core behind it. And so that's what I was doing, is I actually set it the other way around. I set OBS to use the first 4 cores, and then I set Far Cry 4 to using the last 4 cores. So Far Cry 4 looked like this, and OBS looked like this here. So I was making sure that everyone was doing their own thing without stepping on each other's toes. If you set something to, if you uncheck all the boxes, then naturally the program can't really run, and that's a problem. Also, this only works per run, so if you exit the program and restart it, this will all be reset. Trying to think of anything else. No, I think I've been confusing enough. I think that's pretty good. So, we want to go to here. Okay. Yeah, so that's, I can get into more of that later if that's useful. I think you can do the affinity stuff from the default process manager, or whatever the hell it's called. It's been so long since I used it. I've literally been using Process Explorer for so long, I don't remember what the default is called. Yeah, I don't even know. I do know that the one for Windows 10 though is much prettier than previous ones, but Process Explorer still just does more stuff. I can also, I'm going to mention auto runs here because I mentioned it a little bit earlier. So auto runs is awesome, and it looks like this, and basically it goes through and figures out all of the things that are in your startup files, all the things that are integrated into like Internet Explorer. Even if you don't use Internet Explorer, that can be useful to know. Your scheduled tasks, your background services, codecs that are built into Windows, all kinds of stuff. And it compiles them all here, which means that if you're getting some program popping up every time you start up your computer, and it's really annoying you and you can't figure out how to get rid of it, auto runs. Use auto runs to get rid of that shit. It will be somewhere in here. Be careful what you uncheck. You probably don't want to disable a whole lot of Microsoft Corporation stuff except Skype, because Skype can die in a fire. If you were watching my stream a few days back, Skype popped up and actually pulled me out of the game. So yeah, this is totally useful for that. Again, be careful. What I'm saying is not legal advice, yada yada. It'll turn your computer into a flaming pile of whatever. Be careful with it, but it's still super useful. If you can afford to break your computer, play around with it. If you can't, be very careful. But it still may save your ass one way or another. So, right. So if you're on Linux, there were some crashes that were fixed, and there was some issue with window titles trying to load the wrong encoding in the little drop-down menu thing. And they're trying to fix some issues with Mac. I don't use the OBS on Mac too often, except for when I'm using it for code. So hopefully this won't affect me, and hopefully it's fixed. So we'll see. One of the other things that they don't really mention, I guess they've been doing it for a minute now, but they didn't used to have it on their main website, is that they didn't include the browser on the main download page. But now they do include the browser on the main download page. So that's pretty awesome, and it means that it basically obsoletes the tutorial I released like 2 weeks ago. You no longer have to install the browser manually. If you're ever on this page, you probably could have done it before, but it was previously not available from the direct website. So you might want to check out this site here, github.com/jp9000/obs-studio/releases. This is funny to me because the JP8000 is a synthesizer, and that's probably what this is a reference to. And I have actually a JP8000, and they're awesome. I'm just gonna totally tangent on the JP8000 for a second. Look at that beautiful blue 90s beast. I love this thing. It sounds awesome. It's totally digital, but it's awesome, and I like it. It makes great sounds. The feedback oscillator on this thing is totally unmatched and totally unappreciated. And of course, this is really where the supersaw came from. If you know what that is, the JP8000 pretty much Roland invented the supersaw for JP8000, really. The hypersaw came from xybre, which came out a couple years later. xybre B, actually, not the first one. I have the first one, and it doesn't have it. Anyway, so I have this other tab pulled up this whole time. So this is the OBS project Mantis, which is their bug tracker. So if you have any issues with OBS, you can go and look and see if someone else has reported it, and then give your 2 cents. You can see if your problem has already been fixed, and you can report new ones. So this is a good thing to have. I'm going to go drop back to GitHub for a second. And so here's the OBS Studio GitHub page. This is what you'll see. And if you want to get to that, if you get here, but you can't figure out where the releases are, it's this little icon right here. And so you click on this, and that'll take you to this page here. You can download the files here, you can read the change logs, whatever else. It also has a link to the Mantis page. And let's see, what else can we look at here? Let's look at the number of commits. This should be pretty crazy. It looks like they don't have, that's not a problem with them, that's just GitHub. So these are all the individual code changes that are happening. And so like this is just text changes here. And there's just all kinds of random stuff. What was I going to search for earlier? Whatever. So here's one of the changes that was made. Here's the view menu that they're kind of testing out. And you can see here these are the view, hide toolbars, list boxes, scene transitions, and status bar. This is what the code looks like for it. This is actually an INI file, so it's just a configuration file for it. And then here is the UI, which looks like it's actually an XML file. You can see they changed a whole bunch of shit in order to make this happen. And then here's the actual code. This is in C++. You can see the .cpp right here. And it looks like these are booleans and whether to show them or not, transitions, list box control, status bar. And here are the window set visibility. It looks like this is a big horrible mess to make this happen, but then again that's C++ for you. And so here's just setting up the toggles for each of the buttons that you trigger, and yada yada. So and then this is just the header file for it. It doesn't really do anything on its own. So that's just an example of one of the things you can see here, and you can see there's actually a little bit of a summary here, and it explains what's going on. And the changes that are made. And so you can usually find out a whole lot of information about stuff. And one of the other things I'm going to pull up here is it looks like JP9000 really is the boss here. This person is doing all of the work, or at least more work than anyone else by far. I mean, look at this crap. Almost 500,000 lines of code added, and almost, 150,000 lines of code deleted. So these relate to the number of changes that they've made, and you can see there's 2,000 commits. Like, this is a big deal. So this person, if you use OBS, this is who you thank. And you also thank everyone else here who also made, contributed huge amounts of changes, all the way down to like someone who's only maybe made like, 1 or 2 changes, because all these people make OBS. Like, I don't know who this guy is, but or who this chick is, but, you know, they made one change. Whatever significance it had, all these people together, you know, especially due to JP9000, has made OBS Studio what it is. So, that's rad. That's a little bit of a tour of GitHub also. And yeah, so get the updated OBS Studio if you don't have it already, and hopefully that gives you some more information about how it all works. And, you know, whenever they do another update or we find some other interesting tutorial to do, I'll be back for another one. I'm xybre, and this was me talking about OBS Studio, because, you know, how awesome is that? And I will sign off now, and maybe I'll do something more productive later.